The sun was sinking behind the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and violet. The narrow street was almost deserted, except for a few shopkeepers, closing their stalls, and children, chasing each other with laughter echoing down the lane. Among them walked Aisha, her worn-out shoes tapping softly against the uneven ground. She held a small bag close to her chest as if guarding her only treasure. Her eyes darted from side to side, nervous yet determined. She had spent weeks preparing for this day. The letter she received earlier that morning was still folded, neatly inside her bag, a letter that could change everything. But it also carried the weight of uncertainty. If she failed, the last spark of hope she clung to would be gone forever. A sudden gust of wind swept through, scattering loose papers and making her clutch her shawl tighter around her shoulders. She paused near the corner, staring at a tall building that loomed ahead, its windows glowing faintly in the dim light. This was the place. Her heartbeat quickened, loud in her ears like a drum of fate. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward. Each stride felt heavier, as though unseen hands were pulling her back. The security guard by the gate gave her a skeptical glance, his brows furrowed at the sight of her modest clothes. But Aisha lifted her chin, forcing courage into her trembling frame. "I'm here to see Mr. Rahman," she said, her voice steady despite the storm in her chest. The guard hesitated but eventually nodded, making a quick call before letting her pass. As she entered the grand hall, the marble floor gleamed under the crystal chandeliers. Everything around her screamed of wealth and power, a world she had never belonged to. She felt small, almost invisible. Yet the letter in her bag reminded her why she had come. This was her chance to fight for justice, to prove that even the quietest voices could make an echo loud enough to be heard. With determination burning brighter than fear, Aisha walked deeper inside, unaware that this single step would change the course of her life forever. Aisha sat in the waiting lounge, her hands gripping the strap of her bag so tightly that her knuckles turned pale. The ticking clock on the wall seemed louder than her own heartbeat. Every second stretched endlessly, testing her patience and courage. Around her, men and women in sharp suits walked briskly, their polished shoes clicking against the marble floor. She felt out of place, like a shadow among giants. Finally, a young assistant approached. "Mr. Rahman will see you now," he said politely, though his eyes carried a hint of curiosity about why someone like her had been granted such an audience. Aisha rose to her feet, her legs trembling slightly. She followed the assistant down a long corridor, lined with paintings of powerful men who had built empires from nothing. At the end stood a large oak door. The assistant pushed it open and gestured for her to enter. Inside, the office was vast and filled with the scent of leather and old books. Behind a polished desk sat Mr. Rahman, a man whose presence filled the room before he even spoke. His sharp eyes studied her as though he could read the story of her entire life in one glance. "You must be Aisha," he said, his voice calm yet commanding. "I received your letter. Sit." Aisha sat, her palms sweaty, but her gaze steady. "Yes, sir. I came because what happened was unjust. My brother was blamed for something he did not do, and no one is willing to listen. But I know you can." For a moment, silence stretched between them. Mr. Rahman leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled under his chin. "Do you realize the weight of the accusation you've made? You are challenging people with influence far greater than you can imagine." "I know," Aisha replied softly, but her eyes glimmered with quiet strength. "But the truth must matter to someone. If not me, then who will fight for him?" A faint smile tugged at the corner of Mr. Rahman's lips. Her words carried no arrogance, only raw sincerity. He admired that. "Very well," he said at last. "I will look into this matter. But understand, once the stone is thrown into the river, there's no turning back. Are you ready for the storm that may follow?" Aisha's voice did not waver. "Yes, sir. I have nothing left to lose." In that instant, her journey truly began. The following morning, Aisha woke before dawn. Sleep had been restless, her mind replaying every word spoken in Mr. Rahman's office. Though he had agreed to look into her brother's case, doubt still gnawed at her heart. Would he truly help, or would her plea vanish like so many others before? She stepped outside into the chilly morning air, pulling her shawl tighter. The streets were quiet, except for vendors beginning to set up their stalls. Life moved on as usual, but for Aisha, Everything felt heavier, charged with an invisible weight. She knew that once Mr. Rahman began digging into the truth, enemies would rise. By midday, she received a message from his office. Come immediately. Her heart skipped. She hurried through the city, weaving past busy crowds until she reached the towering building again. Inside, the same assistant guided her to a smaller meeting room this time. Mr. Rahman was already there, papers spread across the table. His expression was sharper than yesterday, his voice clipped. I did some digging. What you said, it checks out. Your brother was framed. Aisha's breath caught. Relief flooded her chest, yet fear quickly followed. Then he can be freed? Mr. Rahman's gaze hardened. It's not that simple. The people behind this are powerful. They control the police, the courts, even the press. Exposing them means making enemies I cannot afford unless... He paused, watching her closely. Unless I am certain you're ready to stand beside me when the storm hits. Aisha swallowed hard, her pulse racing. She thought of her brother, sitting in a dark cell, branded a criminal for something he didn't do. She thought of her late parents, who had taught her never to bow before injustice. And she thought of herself, a woman who had nothing but the truth as her weapon. I will stand with you, she said firmly. Whatever it takes. Mr. Rahman leaned back, studying her with newfound respect. Good, then listen carefully. We will need evidence strong enough to tear down their lies. Documents, witnesses, hidden truths they've buried. And that means you will have to go where they least expect you. To the place where it all began. Aisha's fingers tightened around the edge of her chair. Where is that? His answer was steady, grave. The gas station on the outskirts of town. That's where the secret lies. The room fell silent. Aisha realized her fight was only beginning. The gas station stood at the edge of the dusty road, long abandoned, its rusted sign swaying faintly in the dry wind. The paint had peeled away, leaving behind a skeleton of what once served travelers. Broken windows stared out like hollow eyes, and weeds grew between the cracks of the concrete. To most, it was just a forgotten ruin, but to Aisha, it now pulsed with secrets waiting to be unearthed. She stepped out of the rickety bus, her heart pounding. The silence of the place was unsettling. No cars, no people, only the occasional caw of a crow perched on a broken lamppost. She wrapped her shawl tighter around herself and moved forward. Mr. Rahman's words echoed in her ears. That's where the secret lies. Pushing open the rusty metal door, Aisha entered the station's office. The air inside smelled of dust and decay. Old receipts littered the floor, and a cracked desk sat in the corner, its drawers half open. She began searching carefully, her fingers brushing against cobwebs and forgotten scraps of paper. After nearly an hour, frustration threatened to overwhelm her. Maybe I was wrong to come here, she whispered to herself. But then, her hand struck something solid beneath the desk. Kneeling, she found a hidden compartment, its wooden panel barely noticeable. She tugged at it until it snapped free, revealing a small iron box. Her pulse raced. With trembling fingers, she lifted the lid. Inside lay a bundle of papers, sealed envelopes, and a worn leather notebook. She opened the first envelope and gasped. It contained transaction records. Names and dates all tied to the very men who had framed her brother. Corruption, smuggling, bribery, it was all there. A creak behind her made her freeze. Slowly she turned. The doorway was no longer empty. Two men stood there, broad-shouldered and grim, their eyes fixed on her and the box in her hands. Well, well, one of them sneered. Looks like someone's been digging where she shouldn't. Fear surged through Aisha, but she clutched the box tightly against her chest. Her brother's freedom depended on this evidence. She couldn't let it go. Her voice, though trembling, carried defiance. You can't bury the truth forever. Someone will hear it. Someone will see it. The men exchanged a cold smile and stepped closer. The fight for justice had just turned dangerous.